What's up, everybody? Episode 18 of the Duke London podcast. We are recording, I believe. I'm here with my friend Jordan today. This is actually the first time we've spoken in real life for longer than like 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah. Outside of a jam.
Yeah, exactly. Like we've said what's up to each other and that's it. But mostly our bond was created online. Like, yeah, I think so. I'll let you kind of talk a bit more about what you do, but the reason we're here, I think, is like, I think I just kind of followed you around Facebook a bit. Like, anytime there was like a debate or something like that, I saw your name pop up, and there's always a few people that I'm always glad to see their comments in any sort of debate, whether it's about the scene or about life or whatever. Like you, Clint, Renegade sometimes. Yeah, like depending on what we're talking about, it's like those names pop up and I'm like, oh, this is always a comment worth reading, even if it's long. And it always, I always saw the stuff you were talking about and the stuff that you chose to talk about, I guess, or chose to engage on. And I was like, oh yeah, he seems like a cool guy. And then here we are, basically. So I don't know what we'll end up covering, but let's see. So do you want to give us a rundown of like what you do? Because obviously I know you as a b-boy, and obviously from Insta I see you model and stuff like that. But what's the kind of rundown of what would you call your career?
Ooh, what would I call my career? So started off in dancing, wanted to do a bit of everything. Ended up getting into breaking, and then spent the first couple of years mainly doing theatre and teaching.
Oh, nice.
Then went from that into getting into modelling, and used that to sort of fund my life while I was breaking and travelling, but just enjoying really.
Right. So modelling was actually kind of your backup for money.
Yeah, that was my life for a little while. Like that was allowed me to live and enjoy life with my friends for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I started getting pushed into commercial dance, which I didn't really care about at first.
When you say commercial dance, do you mean that more in terms of the way you were dancing or the jobs you were doing?
As in job-wise, commercial choreography and stuff. And then I started to train in that in the last few years more so. Nice. And then I got a PT qualification along the way. And so I've been juggling, sort of pushing my career as a fitness, what do you call it? Not necessarily a fitness persona, but as I want to be someone who caters to people in the dance scene for fitness wise. Nice. And pushing my career and my level in the commercial world to be able to do the performances, shows and whatnot that I want to do there. Yeah. So at the moment, that's where I'm at, is training my skill set to be able to perform where I like to perform and do the things I want to do. And then also building my skills in the fitness side of things as well, to be able to provide what I want to be able to provide.
So you want to more focus on dancers with the fitness stuff?
Yes. So that's something that, we can talk about now. That's something that I would like to do within the next few years. Me and my friend started on it, and because we both had our fitness qualifications, personal training. He was a masseur. We did joint and mobility rehabilitation.
Is this anyone I know?
Aaron Shah.
Okay, right.
So yeah, like he's also a dancer, did breaking, popping and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, the knowledge I got through that has helped me. Like currently at 27, I'm the fittest, strongest, healthiest I've ever been.
Sick. And how long was that journey to get to this point where you're at now? Would you say until you kind of hit the gas on it?
Well, I mean, I'm still Like I just basically rewrote my own program.
Nice.
And I'm still pushing my level, but it's taken me maybe since 2017.
Okay.
So slowly developing and learning and then putting it into practice. And that's basically what I want to bring. When I heard the breaking was going to be on the Olympics,
Yeah.
then I was like, okay, this is the kind of thing we need, you know? And there's people in the scene who they might be a physio or they might be a masseur, or perhaps they've got biomed background, or they've got different things that are very highly regarded. But there's nobody or that I haven't come across many people who are combining the practical skill set required and have the practical skill set in the dance as well.
Yeah.
To combine the two, to be like, okay, you want to learn how to do power moves, you want to be able to flare, you want to be able to do this, you want to be able to do that. Okay, let's actually get you in the gym and actually train your body and give you the best chance of doing these moves as easy as possible, you know? Which I hadn't encountered anybody who was doing that. And still I'm not encountering people who are actually doing that. You know, it's either one or the other, you know? And obviously you look at gymnastics, they have this already.
Yeah.
You know, they have gymnast coaches who then go and study the fitness side of things, who then go and do their qualifications and come back and go, okay, now I used to do gymnastics, but I also do this.
Yeah, actually, funnily enough that you bring it up, my parents are both gymnasts.
Okay.
And my dad was a coach for a long time, and he also worked as a PT, because it was kind of like it came with it, and he learned a lot along the way about just strength and understanding of the body. So he was like, well, I'm also teaching people how to be stronger anyway. So
yeah,
yeah,
it's useful. And we don't, like, obviously hip-hop's hip-hop, and it's not at that stage yet, but we need those things.
Well, I mean, it's getting to that stage, I guess, with the stuff being in the Olympics and all these big competitions. Because I think even Red Bull have some type of, like, they have personal trainers and stuff, from what I've heard, right?
Red Bull have got everything they need, you know, which is amazing. But I also feel like you shouldn't need to have access to the highest quality of healthcare or fitness professionals to be able to achieve your goals, you know? Like the average person will go to the average PT, you know?
Right.
And the average breaker should be able to go to somebody who goes, yeah, okay, I can help you get these moves.
Yeah.
You know, you can come. Like, I've started working with some dancers recently. One of the younger guys who lives in London, actually, I started training recently, and he was like, yeah, I want to fly, you know? He's tall as well. You know, power moves aren't the easiest necessarily. I was like, cool, yeah, we'll get you flying. So let's come and we'll actually train you to be able to do this, you know? And I was like, that's what I want to be doing with the younger guys when the Olympics and stuff rolls around.
Sick. So do you think it's a case of you can do more when you do your workouts in the gym, like kind of separate from the training? Or is it just, it's a different way of achieving it? Because I also know there's something to be said about, you know, like if what you want to achieve is jumping high, you can just jump high a lot and your body, you know, your strength will increase that way. So do you think that, like, you can take it to the gym to do more specific training in certain areas than you could?
Yeah, 100%. Like, it may not be necessary for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of breakers are really small, and I think they should be trained in the gym still. However, they can get away with it less because there's less impact through their joints. They're smaller and whatnot. But
so it's more the strength training without having to keep hammering in the same tricks.
It's the same, like gymnasts talk about, like your parents have probably spoken about this. They say roughly a gymnast puts five times their own body weight worth of force through their joints.
All right.
For example, when perhaps they tumble or whatever it is. And I go, okay, cool. So let's apply that to breaking. My wrist is this big, you know? If my wrist is this big and I want to be jumping up and down off my wrist, then I cannot excessively do that by just doing the movement without causing impact damage, you know? So if I want to make my explosiveness so powerful, if I want to build my fast twitch fibers and my lean muscle mass that much that I can comfortably do more than what I need to do, the only way I can do that is if I add in excess of the weight that I'm going to be putting through it. You know? So the same way, you know, like a gymnast, they still do, you know, heavy lifting, Olympic lifting, like the more you can train your muscles to be able to control way past what you need to, then you're minimizing the damage you're going to be doing to your joints, you know?
Right.
And also just making it a hell of a lot easier.
So
like,
also, I guess that would improve how quickly you can pick up skills.
100%.
If you've already surpassed the strength needed to do it before you started.
Yeah, then all you have to worry about is the technique.
Right.
You know, excuse me again.
No, you're good.
Like I break down my own training and what I'm helping the people I'm helping with. I break down my training into a few categories. So I do compound strength training, which is the basic bog standard, maybe squats, deadlifts, bench press, incline press, different things which are very standard basic that most athletes do, and most people it's good for them to do because it makes your whole body work and keeps your whole body strong and balanced, you know. And that's just for your general overall strength, and I do that literally 5 sets of 5 of those, so it's all for strength because obviously you do certain rep ranges are for certain goals, you know. A lot of people go, oh yeah, but you don't want to get heavy, so do lots of light reps, you know, 10 reps, 20 reps, but super lightweight. And I'm like, well, that's how you build lots of muscle mass. That's not necessarily going to be useful, you know. That's for growth. That's for endurance and growth. Like you're doing breaking, you know, you want to be explosive and you want to be able to punch, you know. So I don't need to build so much excess muscle mass, but the muscle mass I do have and grow needs to be able to push my body weight as powerful as it can.
Right.
So I do strength-based training, you know, strength/power training. Then I'll have like my calisthenics day, or I call it my statics day, you know. So this is where I'm working with, whether it's handstands, planches, levers, things that are, again, basic calisthenics or gymnastics positions, but working with the control in those.
Because a lot of them are breaking stuff as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's totally like if you can planche, flare is going to be easy.
Right.
It's way easier to move through the positions than it is to hold it, you know. And I've also created certain exercises that I've adapted from gymnastics, calisthenics, different things, made them more specific to the moves and positions we'll be in certain breaking moves.
Sick.
And then things that you can also easily add weight to as well. That very unorthodox, but they really work, you know.
When you say add weight, like do you mean like weight vests and stuff, or like literally
so like
holding
a
weights?
plate, like I have one where like in gymnastics they would do hip raises, right? You've probably seen, obviously. And I was like, okay, cool, that's great, but we need something more. What's going to help me, say, for example, if I want a flare, you know? So, okay, cool. So I get a block. I can put my feet on the block, and then I can take my hands back. The block's going to be as high as my shoulders, which is the position I'm going to be in when I'm doing a flare.
Right.
Put a weight plate on my waist, and I lift up and down in that position.
Right. So it's more specific to what you're going to need.
And that's the specific control I can focus on, squeezing my shoulders. It gives me everything I need to be in that position, you know.
Nice.
So it's just little things like that. And then I'll add, you know, I'll do, say, things like weighted pull-ups, weighted dips, where you can, you know, I've got the belt, so you add the weight to it. Again, body weight stuff, but just making it harder, because when I'm on the floor, obviously most b-boys are small. And so for me, most b-boys might be able to be like, okay, I do some pull-ups, some dips, I feel great, I feel strong, cool. When you're 80 kg plus, 6 foot plus, then it's like, okay, my joints really need that extra. So
what do you think's the most, the thing that I guess maybe the b-boys need the most? Is it more protection against injury, or like increasing strength so that they can get bigger and harder moves?
Kind of both.
Yeah. Like kind of dual.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, obviously everyone has different goals.
But like, I mean, more in general in the breaking scene, what's lacking more? Is it more that people get injured so they can't carry on as much, or is it that in general people aren't as strong as they could be, and we could be doing more if they were stronger?
So I think there's those who are very capable. Oof. Oh, that's it. Okay, say if I split into 3 groups.
Yeah.
There's perhaps those who are very capable and are very fortunate.
Right.
B-boy mouse.
Okay.
Doesn't get injured. Massively like flexible, mobile. Picks up most moves quite easily.
It just
talented.
gifted a bit.
Everything works. He says he's never really been injured.
Damn.
He's 40 something.
Yeah.
great career. Doesn't warm up really, just does his thing.
Lucky you. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Had he trained in a gym and done all this and that, maybe he would have got injured, or maybe he would have been even better.
Yeah.
But either way, he had a great career based on that.
Yeah.
Well done to you. Then there's people like him who are fantastically talented, can pick up moves like it's nothing, do great things. 22, 23, 24, bam. Their body gets to a point and then something goes.
Yeah.
And life-changing injury, you know, and that happens with a lot of guys in the scene. A lot of high-level breakers get to a stage where they have one injury that basically changes their life. And it doesn't have to, but they didn't realize that it was getting to that stage because they didn't know how to care for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
And then you have those people who, like I was, for example, when I started, who, yeah, fairly capable, but clearly restricted by the fact that it was going to take me more to get some of these moves because of how my body was built, you know?
Right. In what way?
Being tall, long.
Right.
Realizing that I needed to get way more mobile, way stronger, like compared to the skinny little 5'5" guys, you know?
Yeah.
So like, it was like, and a lot of those guys, they find different ways of moving, but you know, you'll hear people saying, and I would also put a lot of girls in that category.
Right.
You know, oh, you know, it's just, you know, tall guys don't do that move, or girls don't do flares, or like people have literally said that to people, like, yeah, you're a girl, you don't do flares, you can't do flares, like stuff like this. And I'm like, well, no, actually, girls can do power moves, you know?
Yeah.
And that was a conversation that came out not long ago, and some people said some pretty questionable things, but some pretty questionable things, but like, I remember there was a B girl, can't remember her name, and Crazy Legs, they had a little live talk about it, and they were saying like, yeah, like the B girls are at a great level now. Now let's encourage them to train like athletes, you know? Yeah. Because obviously the guys are just been getting on that, and a lot of these guys, they already do come from athletic backgrounds, or a guy knows, oh, I need to get stronger. He'll drop and do some push-ups,
right.
You know? But, and I might upset some people for saying this, but you know, a lot of girls I've spoken to have said like, oh yeah, I want to flare, I want to do this, but how can I do it? I can't, I'm not strong enough, I'm not this or that. Okay, cool, well, you can train this, you can train that. But I don't want to look muscly, I don't want to look this, but I get, my arms get too big, and it's like, there's not the same level, say in gymnastics or athletics, sprinting 100 meters, like them girls don't care what they're going to look like. You got to run as fast as you can.
Your body is a result of being a successful athlete, whatever that means.
And I feel like for both the boys and the girls and everyone else in breaking, that mentality needs to come in more, you know? Yeah. What is it we need to do to be the best we can be physically? Yeah. Forget the creative side. Just physically for our bodies, and okay, then just do it, you know? Yeah. Just do it.
I guess like if you're, this is going to be a shit example, but if you're a painter, maybe like the more colors in your palette you have, the better your paintings could be, because you just have more choice of what to choose from and how to create. Yeah. So I guess it's the same physically, like the more you can do, strength and flexibility and everything wise, the more choice you have to be creative with. You can't be like, I'm not creative in breaking because I can't fucking do anything. Do you know what I mean? I'm not strong. So it's obviously that's going to affect your creativity, but your creativity or lack of creativity isn't going to affect your athleticism. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's Wing said it, like he was so creative because he couldn't do the moves so easy like all the other guys.
Interesting.
He's 6'1" as well, like tall, you know, he's a tall Korean guy, like, and a lot of the guys in his crew and around were very small and extremely agile, extremely capable. He wasn't as capable, but at the same time, he still is ridiculously capable. Yeah. So it's kind of funny that he said this, because you watch some of the stuff he does.
It's like relatively capable. It's like,
you watch him and you're like, that's still crazy, but okay. But he said it forced him to find different ways of going about and doing things. Yeah. So there is the other side to it, that like, if everyone trains to be able to do the same things, perhaps everyone will do more of the same things. So I do understand why some people are like, they don't care and they just work with what they've got, and that allows them to find a different way of doing things, you know?
Well, I mean, Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said about creativity coming from restriction. I mean, that's
Yeah.
with even with the way we train a lot of times is like, okay, we're going to train and you can only use your arms, or let's only do footwork, or whatever it might be, the alternate in breaking, So like
Yeah.
when you give yourself
Same
restrictions.
with stand-up styles.
Yeah.
Like everyone.
So I think, but also then it's like, say with Wing, where he said like he wasn't as capable, so he trained around that. But then also if he fixed where he wasn't capable and still kept the same mentality, he'd be double. You know what I mean? It's not gonna be a negative thing. It's just gonna enhance, I guess. But also you can still make it work from a place of not being as capable.
Well, that's the thing. And for someone like him, I think he was always going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like some people are going to be amazing.
It's just in them.
Regardless of what. Yeah.
Yeah.
You give them more ability, they'll be even more amazing,
Yeah.
So, and those who are struggling, I think maybe they might struggle regardless,
Right.
Some people can do all the moves and are so boring and not creative at all and never will be because...
It's just part of who they are, I guess.
Yeah.
Which kind of sucks to say, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about the B-girls as well. I'd be interested to hear your take on that, because I was talking to Vanessa last week about I guess her experience as a B-girl. But how do you see that, like the difference between like the way breaking is seen for guys and breaking is seen for girls? Like I know you were saying that maybe the girls and maybe some guys put expectations on girls, as in like, oh, you're never going to be able to do flares or this or that. But do you think that the style of breaking for girls has evolved differently because of stuff like that? Or do you think it could be the same as guys, like that a girl could basically do an identical set to a guy, but it's just that they haven't trained that strength yet?
I think there's definitely elements of girls developing different styles because of who they are. I think because it's such a male dominated scene, a lot of the styles and trends that came up with the B girls, you can trace them to one or two people a lot of the time.
Right.
Because
it's newer, or how do you mean?
Well, as in, like, for example, like there's always trends in any scene. With breakers, there's 95% men. So of the top however many breakers, different people will take from different people, and you'll get a whole variety and different trends. Whereas when there's only one or two top girls, a lot of the girls of that generation will aspire to be like that girl or whoever it is. And so a lot of the styles with the B girls through different generations, you can see, oh, this girl or this girl or this girl, and it's usually, you can usually trace it quite easily. And that isn't necessarily a reason for any restriction physically. And I think if the top B girls happens to have crazy power, then more of the girls would be aspiring for having those moves as well, And because a lot of the guys do say those things like, oh yeah, but girl, you can't do this, you can't do that. Unfortunately, a lot of girls take that to heart. But then also because they see guys doing things, and to some extent guys will be able to do perhaps certain things a bit easier, potentially. I think some girls maybe feel a bit defeated by that. Right. I've known girls who have taken that and then they've pushed and they, were able to do power moves better than most guys. I don't know if you remember Nads.
I don't think so.
So she did the opposite. She was like, nah, fuck B-girl battles. Nah, all these guys, I'm going to do better. And she pushed and she trained and she was doing all power moves and combos, like windmill air flare, like she had crazy drills, like she was doing power combos that, are not basic. Yeah. And she was known around the world for that.
Right.
And so I think, it just depends what people are aspiring to. And obviously you don't need to do crazy power moves, but I definitely think that the more breaking in general, breakers are encouraged to physically train their bodies to cater to what they do, then we'll start seeing like a higher level of everyone and also a higher level of B-girls. Like the B-girl level is rising and rising anyway. And the more they go, you know what, yeah, we can beat the guys, actually, we can do everything the guys can do, then it's gonna be interesting, because a lot of the girls especially, they like the dancing side of it. They really like the performance side of it, you know, and they have good presence and all this. So that's something that you see as a trend with B-girls especially.
But I wonder if that came from them maybe thinking, oh, I'm not going to be able to do power, so what else
maybe
can I do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they wouldn't have specialized in that stuff if they had been told they could do power from the beginning, kind of
for
thing.
sure.
Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Which is then why it would be great if, like, as time goes on and they, you know, we see that, and then they start bringing in these high level moves as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Then it's gonna start to be like, oh, okay.
It's like the kind of like the wing example.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you didn't think you could do that stuff, so you trained all this other stuff. Now add the belief that you can do power and crazy strength move to that.
Wing has done, he is doing actually crazy high level stuff, and it's made him incredible, because he took what he struggled with, and then he's found ways to actually be a creative around it, and then still do the crazy stuff and build on that. And yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. You're starting to see like B-girls around the world. You know, it's like, it's always a thing when there's a B-girl doing air flares, and there's some B-girls doing some mad power combos now, and you're going like, okay, like, so this will get interesting now, you know, because obviously it's always been a thing of, but the guys will always have the advantage, and maybe physically to some extent that's true. You know, but not every guy has the same body shape, you know. A lot of guys aren't built in a way that's ideal for breaking, myself included. And there are some girls who are built better for it than guys are, and it'll be interesting to see like the girls coming with more and more of this level now, and all those guys who thought that the B girls were always going to be like, nah, like, it'll be interesting when these girls start really, really smashing it. And you know, more B-girls, it'll be dope to see then those B-girls also entering just regular battles as opposed to B-girl battles, and taking out all these guys, you know.
Where do you see how do you see the necessity of B-girl only categories? Like, ideal world, would you get rid of them, or do you think it's good that they're there?
In an ideal world?
Yeah.
Well, I guess in an ideal...
Or like, let's say not ideal world, as in if you were a king of the world right now, would you be like, there's no more B-girl battles, everyone enter the same shit? Or do you think that it serves a purpose?
It definitely serves a purpose, innit?
Yeah.
Like, it's a male-dominated scene, and, you know, if you want more women to be involved, then you have to make space for it. And, you know, it's like any diversity inclusion, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you have to make space for it, and yeah, it's great. Like, some people don't like it, and some girls don't like it, and that's fair enough.
I guess maybe also the problem would be, or I mean, maybe the change I would make is for there to be completely open breaking battles and then B-girls as well. So like, if the B-girls don't want to enter just to go,
yeah, they should be able to
enter the normal battle.
Yeah, I guess
that should be their choice, I guess.
It's like you had, I can't remember his name, who was on there talking about kids battles.
Rory, yeah.
Rory, and he said, if you only do kids battles, then you're not really gonna get as good to be able to, and he'd rather go against adults. And I get that. That was me when I played football.
Right.
I would play with like my uncle's teams and like local older guys, like, and from age 12, 13, I was playing with adults really, and that meant my football level in the next 2-3 years like went crazy high, to the point where once I actually was grown then, and I was at the peak of my playing game, I was on another level to them, you know. So it was like, in some respects it was great, but to then not ever have the opportunity to play with people my own age would have been silly, you know.
Right. So maybe a balance.
So yeah, it's like, it's good to have both. Obviously you have your own category, great, and there's no reason why you shouldn't have that own category. And it's good to know that, okay, you can compete in a place where you feel comfortable against those who are in the same you know, similar level to you, or whatever. And then yeah, if you want to, you can put yourself into the tougher ground again, you know. some girls, they don't want to go and B-girl battles. They're like, no, I want to battle the boys.
Right.
Fair
But
enough.
at the moment, I'm right in saying most of the, if it's a B-boy battle and then there's B-girls, the girls can't enter the main category.
I think it depends on the competition.
Right.
I
Some of
think
them are just open.
a lot of them say like 1 versus 1 open.
Okay.
But then, for example, what's Moy's thing called? Break free. I think break free, they specified B-boy and B-girl.
Right.
I could be wrong on that. They can correct me if I'm.
Yeah.
But
there are some that still do boy, girl.
Like Outbreak, it will say like 1 versus 1 and anyone can enter that. Like then they'll have the B-girl separately, but
right,
anyone can enter 1 versus 1, you know, kids. They also have a kids, but the kids can enter 1 versus 1. So it's like, and obviously some guys will be like, oh, why don't we have just a strict, well, you don't need a strict B-boy. You're all going to enter the 1 versus 1 anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, like it is what it is really. I mean, some girls like it, some girls don't. And
yeah,
it's definitely helpful. It's definitely helped, you know, definitely improved the visibility, and it's definitely got more girls wanting to be involved and thinking they can do something, you know.
Yeah,
definitely representation, it's definitely helped.
I mean, in terms of event planning, it's kind of good practice. I mean, I did events in uni, and it was like one of the modules we had was on sport event, and one of the key things they were saying was like the more categories, prizes, accolades that you can give to your participants, the more people receive something, the more people are going to come back to your event. Like if you just have one winner, and which is often the problem with dance battles, I find it's like you have one winner and it's like I flew all the way to your country, entered the prelims, waited all day, blah blah, and I walk away with fuck all. Like, so I think in that sense, like the more people, the more categories you have, the more people, you know, even if you have 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th place get a prize, everybody feels like, oh, I was part of this event. So in that way, I guess it's good to, you know, as long as you give them also the option to enter the normal battles, you're giving everybody a place to find their spot.
I think that's a good point actually, and I hadn't thought about that until you said that. And in terms of B-girls especially, that is great, because there will be B-girls now. For example, we've had the first B-girl BC1 champion, for example,
right,
which we probably wouldn't have had for a while had that opportunity not been opened up, you know. And as much as some people might say that's a backhanded compliment to some extent, like in the time period right now, it's good to be able to offer that, you know. Like it's good that a B-girl can still go to an event and come home with a win that she, without sounding horrible, probably wouldn't have taken if she was in the regular one-on-one category with all the guys, you know. And within time and the way the level is rising and B-girls are becoming more confident and the level's shooting up, then soon they will start taking, and they are already taking guys out in those categories. Ayumi just got to the final of the Style Elements anniversary.
Yeah, she's fucking sick.
Like,
and I think also it's not even just because it's like, okay, maybe the 2 B-girls who are in the finals, you're like, or even like someone like Ayumi, it's like, okay, you could probably compete against a lot of good guys, but then it's not even that. It's maybe like the people that got to the semis or even got to the quarters. It's like you may have never made it through prelims for another 6 years if it wasn't for that specific category. And it's like, okay, maybe at the top level you can traverse between the different categories, but all the people underneath, it's like, oh, you know, someone that's going to be super, I made it to quarters in BC1 or whatever, you know, semis in BC1 might not have happened if it was just one category. Yeah,
no, for real. It's a lot of people will say that's just that, like it's just a handout, so to speak. But no, I mean, I think it's even for those people, like you're saying, the people who are just making it onto that top 16, they're so happy about it, you know. I can't remember who it was, and I don't know if it was at BC1 here or if it was at another event in another country, but I remember having a conversation with someone because one of the B-girls from here qualified. It was like top 16 somewhere. It was quite like high level. And they said, oh yeah, she qualified. She's so happy. And then I spoke to her and she said she was so happy. I can't remember who it was. This is really bad. But I remember that. And it was like, oh, that's nice.
Just to qualify was enough.
Yeah, it was nice that she, and that's like a stepping stone, you know. And people say, oh, it's a handout because, oh, you know, it's a B-girl battle. And when so what? Like, at the moment, there isn't the same care and encouragement for women in the scene. There isn't, like, you know, as much as some of these girls are on a great, they're fucking dope. You know, there isn't the same understanding of B-girls training to get to a certain level as there is with the guys. Right. You know, like, for most of the guys, it's like, okay, cool. What do I need? I need to do this, and this. Okay, cool. I'm gonna get this move. I'm gonna get that move. Like we spoke about with the girls, there's certain things where they feel restricted, where people are saying this, people are saying that. People don't really want to help them. Maybe people do want to help them, or they're pretending to help them because they just want to get in their pants. Yeah. Or there's so many things, like, it's not so straightforward. You know, like, some girls, that's why some girls, they don't spend very long in the scene, or they plateau, or they feel like not comfortable in the scene, because it's not a straightforward path to get into the top level, you know? Right. So, like,
they've got to dodge maybe obstacles that the guys don't have to dodge.
Yeah, they got to work it out for themselves and figure out how to get around these things. And so to give them more hope, you know, and more encouragement, and be like, you can get here, you know, it's just a stepping stone, a little help along the way, you know. And it's not taking anything away from them either, because they are still putting the work in, and they are still getting to that level, and they are still then winning those things, you know. So yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think there's also, you know, on that note of the girls having it, you know, difficult or different obstacles and stuff like that. It's like, I think this is where, I mean, I don't really have answers, but I find it super interesting, the conversation about, you know, when you have different sexes in the same sort of thing, you get that. And I mean, this is a wider problem with just general misogyny and guys not understanding how to deal with sexual urges in a way. But, you know, obviously there's the end of the spectrum where girls feel afraid to be in a spot, or like they feel, you know, physically threatened, or there's, like, you know, potentially sexual abuse and stuff. That's one end of the spectrum, which is like, there's not really a gray area. It's just, don't do that, you know. But then you've got the other end of the spectrum, which is like, which I think is an interesting topic, which is like, okay, we know that if you're at a session and there's a girl here, maybe she doesn't want to be hit on. However, there's not anything inherently wrong with being attracted to a girl. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, or it can be a gay guy or whatever it is. Like, being attracted to someone isn't inherently wrong. It's knowing how and when to do that, which I think is the problem. Because I would imagine, from the girls I've spoke to and from my knowledge of life, I wouldn't think that anyone would be necessarily pissed off that a guy saw them and was like, oh, she's pretty, I want to talk to her. The idea of it, do you know what I mean? But it's, and, you know, it could be that the girls feel the same, you know, like they could be in a spot and be like, oh, that b-boy's hot, you know. But it's how you go about that without fucking it up, basically, and making them feel like shit, which is, I think, is most of the problem. And I think this is maybe the conflict I get. I may be talking shit, but I think this is maybe the conflict where people, like, b-boys are like, oh yeah, but like, or, you know, dancers in general or guys in general are like, I don't think there's anything wrong, like, I find her hot, blah blah blah, or there's another girl that I spoke to and she liked it, or whatever. And then they're not separating it from the fact of, like, it's not what you feel, it's how you're expressing what you feel, which is the fucked up part, and at the wrong time, and you're using, you know, I'll come and train at my house, like,
impact,
you know, you
over intention, isn't it?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah,
I guess I had this conversation with someone recently about the gym.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, because I've seen, I'll say that in a minute. Go on.
Yeah, like, some people go into the gym, they just want to do their workout and go home, and they don't want to be harassed. Yeah. You know? And you might be like, well, I'm not harassing you if I go up to you and say, hey, how are you? But some people, that's just enough. That's enough alone. Like, please leave me alone. Because they have enough guys going up to them and saying that. So it's like the whole, you know, same with, like you said, at a practice spot, you see a B-girl there, and somebody might be like, oh, she's cute. Okay. Or maybe you see something and you go, that, you know, maybe I actually could help her with that. And that's my thing a lot of the time, is like, I've gone up to girls more, say at a gym or at a spot, to help them with something, especially at the gym, because, like, you see a lot of girls like trying to do handstands and stuff at the gym. That was also, you know, a big thing. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of the guys were always like, oh, and the girls were trying to do handstands and all this shit. And I was like, okay, I would say
This is actually what I do. Let me
Yeah.
let me help you out.
And it would be like, oh, why is he's just trying to talk to me?
Right.
And it would be like I'm actually trying to help you because it looks like your elbow's about to buckle, and I've been doing this for about 10 years. So,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, but I get it. Like, it is like you know, where is it that something is okay or not okay? And
Yeah.
you know, some girls, they have no problem, and some girls, they don't want anyone to talk to them, and a lot of guys, I guess, just don't. They can't understand outside of either extreme. You know, it's like one day you might do something, and one person's fine with it, and the next day somebody isn't fine with it.
Right.
And it doesn't mean that you did necessarily anything wrong, you know. Or maybe both times you was wrong, maybe both times you was right. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like
Everybody's
every situation,
different boundaries.
Like just you got to take every situation like that, analyze it, and read the room and take a risk. And if not, cool, it's fine. If she wasn't happy with it, fine. I'm sorry, it's fine.
Yeah.
You know.
I think that's also the other thing is just being able to accept a no or whatever.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot of times the problem, because it's like, especially maybe, you know, like you were saying in the gym, like girls don't want anyone to come up and speak to them, or in the practice or whatever. But it's like, as a guy, you don't know that until you speak to her.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to. There's a thing of like, okay, you can go and say hi and say what's up, and you know, even if you quote unquote hitting on her, but like, you know, just saying a compliment or whatever it is, as long as you're respectful. If she says like, oh, I'm not interested, and then you take it and be like, okay, apologies, like, see you later.
Yeah.
Then it's like, you also don't know as a guy what else she's like, if she's had 10 guys hit on her before, or if she's gonna, because, you know, like you said, everybody's different, or if she's gonna be like, oh, sick, like, let's go out for a drink, you know, like, you never know until you speak to the person. So I think it's just dealing with, approaching appropriately, and then dealing with the no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always find it interesting, because I feel one of my things in life is like, I mean, maybe we're going on to a different topic, but it's fine. I don't feel that the answer to, how do I say that? Like, I don't think the answer to misogyny or men, let's say, just treating women like shit, I don't think the answer to that is to completely repress everything that you feel for women. Or, you know, if it's a bit different, if we're talking about guys being into guys or whatever, or girls being into girls, but from a straight male's perspective of mine, I don't think that the answer is like, and I've seen a lot of people, you know, like movie stars in interviews and stuff, saying shit like this or whatever, but it's like, oh, the Me Too movement made me not want to talk to girls anymore. And it's like, yeah, like Henry,
how are you talking to those guys?
Henry
in the
Cavill
first
said
place?
that. Superman.
He's my half brother, isn't it?
Yeah, he said like, oh, the Me Too movement made me not want to, something that I'm paraphrasing, but like, made me not want to hit on girls anymore, or talk to girls anymore. And it's like, that you're missing the point. And it's not, it shouldn't be, oh, you know, I'm never going to talk to girls anymore. We can't say anything these days. It's like, you just have to learn how and what you're doing wrong. And I think that's the big thing for me, is like, to, again, like I said, especially from the straight male perspective, that there's a right way to do it. And it's not repressing yourself and just being like, oh no, I'm not into any girls. I don't find any girls attractive. It's like, okay, we all feel like this. We all find girls hot. But the point is to understand those feelings, know when and where they're appropriate to communicate. And if they're not, deal with it. You know?
I had a conversation about this recently with someone, and we were talking like, it was when more names started coming out in the industry about inappropriate behavior. And we were talking about our own experiences, you know, and there's things that over the years, for sure, I know in the past, there's times where I've crossed the boundary, you know, and I've been like, oh shit, okay. When the person said this, okay, cool, you know. And then there's been times where, like, I know I made effort to not cross a boundary, but something that was unknown to me, that they didn't vocalize, and they vocalized later, and then said, oh yeah, you did cross the boundary. And me and my friend, we were talking about this, and like how, you know, the Me Too movement and different things where some guys are like, well, you know, then everyone's going to be outed and and it's like, well, no, it's not a case of that. Like there's going to be clear one end where, okay, they did nothing wrong. One end, they did everything wrong. But there's going to be a lot in the middle where, you know, there was blurred lines. One person felt uncomfortable, but the other person wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong.
Right.
You know, perhaps the person wasn't comfortable, but they allowed it to continue in that sense. Or perhaps one person did push a little bit and they perhaps weren't aware that they were pushing that much. And then it became aware and then, you know, but then they'd already pushed.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like, you know, they take step 1, they take step 2, and it's all fine. And then they take step 5, and step 5 is a no-go. And it's like, and then next day the person's like, I wish you hadn't have. But everything was okay up to that point. You know what I mean? And there's obviously certain things where perhaps, you know, we need to have more conversations about our interactions, because as much as men are dickheads in that, because they are taught or allowed to be that way, a lot of us, and I'm talking as well from my things that I've done, we genuinely don't know and realize sometimes when we are crossing a line or a boundary. You know? And that's why now, like with the way I am with girls, like I would endeavor to almost, some people think I'm not interested, or I will be as close as I will ever be to doing something with a person, and they still don't think I'm going to or want to. Because I literally will want to make sure that, okay, I'm being super sure of, you know, that they're, or even in the way I talk, perhaps I almost want the person to 100% vocalize what they want to, you know. There's certain ways that I've learned, okay, I guess I've got to be like this now, you know, because as men, we're not taught to read the room in that sense with women. And like, you know, obviously it doesn't change that those women are made to feel uncomfortable at certain experiences that they're having that are, obviously I'm not talking about extremes, we're talking about the blurs,
about the grey areas, you know, in the middle.
Grays. And it doesn't take away anything from what those women are experiencing. But we do need to talk and go like, okay, but for a lot of us, we genuinely don't know where we're sitting in those greys, and we need to be taught better how to act in that middle ground, you know.
And I think it's one of the big things as well is that it's completely situational, is that word? And like contextual and between each pair of people. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not something that you learn once and you're good for life. Like, okay, I can do this all the time, and it's like every you have to go from zero every situation and like re-establish communication and discuss all the bits and understand how that person is every single time there's a new person.
It's all those things that like when you said like what Henry Cavill said, that makes me not want to talk to him. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. You just need to go into every situation, and with every situation know that, okay, I need to be aware, and I need to be understanding, I need to be on the lookout, you know. You know, like with my mistakes in the past, a lot of it's been like because I've just been unaware or not paying attention, or because everything was okay to a point, then I you know, and you get carried away.
At some point you start making assumptions and you don't know that you've started making assumptions, I guess.
And then you go, you stop and you go, okay, I feel like we should have stopped a step ago. Something doesn't feel right, you know? And it's like learning to be like, okay, you know, and some girls the thing is like you said, with every situation is different. And I get some guys, they're like, but then it means this, and it's that, and then you're going to ruin the moment. And then it's like, no, not necessarily. I mean, there are some women who, they will feel like, they may say, you're ruining the moment if you ask too many questions. But then that's fair enough. But I'd rather ask those questions to know that I'm not doing anything that's gonna cause any problems.
100%.
Because as much as I can say, I'm reading the room or I'm being aware of them, even when I thought I've been that, sometimes I haven't.
Sometimes you just need it to be vocalized. Like,
yeah. And I don't want to make those mistakes regularly. So, you know, it's like, I'm making it sound like I do some terrible things. No, I just mean like, I just mean like knowing like, obviously the difference between somebody who wants to get carried away maybe and somebody who doesn't, you know, like, you know, me saying, oh, do you want to do this? You know, me knowing that they want to and don't want to, you know.
As opposed to just thinking.
Yeah, as opposed to, as we're doing it and then going, oh, actually...
I shouldn't have took that risk.
I should have just said, because now it feels a bit weird because I don't think you do want to. And I could have just asked already, you know. And obviously sometimes, you know, you feel like totally... yeah, we both want to do this, obviously. Yeah. And you don't need to say anything. But I guess that's part of the risk, you know. Sometimes you feel like that, and then at one point, that's not the case. And but there's always going to be that risk, isn't it? Yeah.
This is like one of my things that I'm the most interested in. Like, because I think, you know, also I find, I don't know what your opinion on this is. I find that, again, I'm speaking mainly from this like straight white male perspective, and I mean in general when I'm speaking on topics, that's the only perspective I have. But I think, you know, it tends to be a lot of my demographic that are doing the oppressing in various situations. But I think with women, no, I lie, with men, there's not a lot of role models for a healthy expression of straight male sexuality. This is what I've found, or my opinion on it, is like you have a lot of people and I'm talking like in popular culture and film and TV and stuff, you have a lot of like, I don't know, a super dumb example of like Sex in the City, and like here's women like owning their sexuality and like, yeah, let's go, great. And it's like, oh, cool. Like this is, you know, I haven't actually watched a lot of Sex in the City, but like these type of programs where it's like the idea being is that the woman is sexually liberated and she's kind of going about it, living her life, owning it and being happy about it. It's like, great, cool. This is a role model for one expression. You also have a lot of the like married with kids kind of demographics in TV and film. Cool. That's another expression of how to, you know, be an adult. With straight males who are sexual in film and TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong on this, but here's what I've found. You get the creep who's the like, he's usually the unattractive guy in the movie, and he's like the slimy, like creepy guy who's like just really wants to bang all the girls. You know, like did you ever watch Big Bang Theory?
Oh, Howard. The little Jewish one.
Yeah, no, is it the guy with the Howard? Yeah,
he's the creep.
You're right, he's the creep, and he's the
slept with his cousin or something. Like, yeah,
he's just the not good looking guy, but he's very like sexual. But then you get the other side, which is maybe the like Ryan Reynolds character, which is the womanizer, and he's also very sexual, but he's sleeps with the girls and tells them get out and moves on to the next one. There's not and it usually ends with them being hurt.
Yeah,
it's usually not, you know, it's like them throwing his stuff out the window and it's funny and it's played for laughs, but there's not really a character which is like sexual in a way that's not, you know, just, oh, I met this girl and married her and had a kids, and he's expressing it well and speaking to different girls and whatever, but in a healthy way. There's not a lot of characters like that on film and TV for us to look up to.
I'm trying to think of that, and I'm trying to think, I'm like, okay, what do I watch? What have I watched? And it's like those healthy characters are generally not portrayed by the typical ladies' man type guys. True. They exist, but they're always portrayed by the more, for using one of my friend's words, homely type people, you know.
I see it sometimes in the character of like the hippie stoner, like oh, I'm just so free sexually and I just take lots of shrooms, and like, you know, is that type of character sometimes who's very like, who does that, like the healthy sexual practices, but he's portrayed as like, oh, he's a bit silly and weird kind of thing, as opposed to like, I'm trying to think now that you said that. Because even I was watching something about Moonlight recently, and it's like, oh, even in that you've
I've
got
still not seen that. You
oh,
know?
great movie. Great
I don't know
movie.
why I haven't seen that. That should be. In fact, I'm
Yeah,
that's my list
note
right
that
now.
down. But I think even with Moonlight, you've got a healthy portrayal of a black gay man.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that's amazing. Like to see not just different stereotypes of a gay man. It's like a very, there's a lot of people that could be seen in mainstream movies and TVs, but this guy just happens to be gay. So it's not like there's a whole other character for a gay guy. It's
Yeah.
just a guy who's also gay, which is great. But then it's like, yeah, I'm just like, I've always looked out for that. I mean, they do happen, these characters, but there's not a lot for us to look up to
Yeah.
in that way. And I find also the thing that why I think it is because maybe popular culture's idea of a straight man expressing his sexuality in a healthy way is if he gets married and has kids. So you have that character who's married and he's a faithful husband and he's a great guy, but that's the only way we can express anything sexual healthily is to be in love and be faithful and get,
And even then, it's sort of, that's not the kind of guy who people necessarily want to see because he's inaccessible, So to some extent, perhaps it loses a bit of its sex appeal.
And who,
Maybe.
that's, you only identify with that at one point in your life. If you meet someone and you want to get married and have kids, right? Or even if you're young and you're like, one day I'll get there.
Yeah.
Also, you're going to turn, let's say 15, and until you're in your early 20s, maybe you're not going to start, most guys maybe are not going to start having long-term relationships. So for that 10 years of your life, who are you looking up to? And you're also, 15, 16-year-old guys, you're like, holy shit, I'm fucking turned on by every girl that's walking past me. What do I do with these feelings? Who do you look up to? Do you know what I mean? I think this is a lot of my thing where I've always wanted to be maybe like a role model for that, of like, being healthy in your sexuality isn't about repressing it, or it's not about like, oh, I'm married and I'm I just only have sex with my loving wife. Like in my opinion, it's okay to have casual sex and stuff like that. It's all about how, when, with who. Like if you're doing it consensually with adults, there's a communication there. This isn't where I thought this podcast was going to go, but it's like, that you need to. And I've understood that through. Luckily, I feel like I've grown up with good. I'm very articulate. I like to think. I communicate well. I feel like I'm quite empathetic, I guess. Like I understand what their feelings are when they're trying to communicate. So for me, in a way, I've been very lucky to have a lot of close girlfriends who are very open with me. Not girlfriends, like who are friends, who are very open with me. So I've learned as I'm growing up, like, okay, maybe this isn't, and there's been times where girls have said to me, yo, you fucked up on that. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Like, I didn't know that. But what if you're not that, like, who are you modeling yourself after? If you're lucky enough to have a parent that does that, but if you don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think when I was first becoming more aware and more of an adult sexually, so to speak, that was when I was mainly surrounded by girls.
Interesting.
And not...
As in like growing up family-wise or friends and stuff?
Friends. Okay. So like college and stuff. And so I got to learn without necessarily being involved. And that was also where a lot of my... Like I was already intuitive and curious and always thinking and trying to understand and, but between like the age of like 16 to 18 was where I really... my mind started to really open and I started to really consider more of what was around me, and in terms of relationships and girls and sex and things, that was when I really started to, I was just taking in, and like you said, like, when you got girls around and you're listening to them, you're taking things in, they might say, this and that actually. And like, I think maybe a lot of guys, maybe this is why I've never really been the type of guy who likes to hang out with the lads then.
Right.
Because I feel like a lot of those problems come with those types of people who don't integrate and don't like. There's nothing wrong with hanging out with the lads. And obviously I've got a lot of guy friends. Actually most of my close friends, they are guys, but it's not like my friendship circle is just lads. I'm not spending time going to the pub with lads and just listening to lad conversation and you know what I mean? Like I do take a lot in, and I do like what I have learned over the years from being around women, you know, and I think maybe if more men did that, you know, and actually surrounded themselves with women at certain points, you know, to actually just take in and hear, and it goes back to what we were talking about, everything else in misogyny, you know, and consent and stuff. Like a lot of guys would probably be shocked at what they would learn or what they realized they didn't know, you know. But yeah, and in terms of, I guess, role models, like on television, I can't think of like for me especially, because like my role models growing up were Will Smith. That was probably one of the earliest ones. Specifically in Fresh Prince, you know. Then who was it after that? He was the main one, really. That was my childhood. I mean, that was, you know, a young black man on TV, and that was my role model. And obviously they address certain issues with masculinity and misogyny and whatnot. However, Will Smith in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is a guy who goes on a date with a different girl every weekend, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, they do not actually speak about it and address whether that's a good or bad thing, and if that is okay, why it is okay. You know,
I think also even with Fresh Prince, like it's the episodes which are centered around him going out with different girls and hitting on girls are always the fun throwaway parts. It's like he says something funny to a girl in the gym and we're laughing at how he's hit on her. The serious deep episodes are the ones where it's about emotions and love and stuff like that. And it's this, and I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of people that would disagree with me because they're like, oh, well, it is more important and more deep to be in love with someone than it is to be sleeping around. I mean, you know, people can argue with me, but I don't necessarily agree with that. I think sexuality is, and I think this is what the fucking problem is that sexuality is such a deep, like such a deep primal feeling in us, almost as strong as love is at some point. And it's like, if you don't know how to channel that and use it in a healthy way, this is where we get these fucked up behaviors, I think. And it's like, so if it wasn't treated as like, oh, this is just the fun, him being silly, and here's the serious shit, maybe we'd take them both seriously. Like, I'm even thinking of, you know, Iron Man. Do you watch all the Marvel stuff? His Playboy times were like early on when he was still being irresponsible and silly. As he grew as a character and got more like, he got better as a superhero, he started being more about the team, he started growing as a person, he settled down. And it's like these things that are like slipped under. It's like, oh, this is included in growing as a man, is to start settling down. And not, why couldn't he be the most mature? Why couldn't he sacrifice himself to save the world, but had a one night stand last night? Why does that equate to maturity? It's
like if you're not in a serious relationship, then you're not serious about life.
Exactly.
Like you have to be, and it's like, but that's not necessary.
And it always signifies that, like, case. Oh, he's settling down, so now he's like taking life seriously.
Now he's grown up. When you're gonna grow up and stop? But hold on a sec. Some people never want that, and they don't ever need that.
And what's to say that there's something more or less grown up about sexuality? Actually, wouldn't it be that the more grown up and mature, this is the way I would see life, the more grown up and mature you are, the more open you are to embracing your sexuality. And I'm not saying that's better than settling down. If you meet someone you love and you settle down, have kids, amazing, like, but it's not to say that that's any more mature than exploring your sexuality.
It's like the typical it's like the those things that people always say, you know. And like I've had these conversations with people where I just go, okay, but why? But why?
It's just like ingrained
like you
in
say
society.
that, but why?
Yeah.
Like, and it's sad because like I've had conversations with certain girls where they view me a certain way, whether they know me or not. And I'm like, okay, cool. And we have conversations, and maybe they'll talk about other women a certain way. And I'm there like, okay, but that doesn't make that woman any less respectable if that's what she wants to do, you know? Like, if I'm not here getting married and having kids right now, does that mean you don't respect me as much or whatever it is, you know? Does that mean if you're going to go and do something tomorrow? And obviously, like, I understand where it comes from, you know? And yeah, I had to question myself and go, hold on a sec. Because I've said those things in the past or thought along those same lines and gone, wait, actually, why though? Actually, no, that's bullshit. Actually, it doesn't need to be like that, you know?
Yeah.
But for so many people, it's built into them. Like, it is so built into them. It's scary.
And I think the thing for me why this is also important is like the same things that are integrated into society that make us think these things. Like I said about the Iron Man example, like you don't even notice it unless you're looking for it. Like since I had this thought, I've been looking at all the like how straight men are portrayed and stuff, and how that has an effect on what we're modeling ourselves after. But if those same things that are integrated, like the idea that marriage is what happens when you become more mature and sleeping around is when you're young and silly, it's the same things that happen with race and stuff like that. These things that you don't even notice growing up, and you're like, oh yeah, the black guy is always the mugger, or you know, like these type of things where it's like it's the same shit. It's an idea that whoever the either the movie studios or society in general has given to a certain group of people. The gay guy is always the gay best friend who's a bit bitchy, and it's like there's one character
likes to go party like crazy, take loads of drugs, and
yeah,
has
and
unhealthy sexual relationships,
right,
and
exactly.
blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
And also again with that, he's always sleeping around.
Yep.
So it's like what are we now saying about people in this? So it's like you always have this idea that almost you're too wrapped up in the story or the character. I'm talking kind of mostly in popular culture, that you don't realize what you're taking in and what cementing in your own head. You're like yeah, what, like you said, asking people why. You're like, oh yeah, why do I see marriage as more mature than like
asking yourself like why. Like some people will be like, the amount of times people have said to me, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. The amount of times I've heard
about
that.
what?
Anytime I've questioned so many things, like, yeah, but it's not that deep. Yeah, but it's not that deep. And I'm like, even to this, like, example, right? Something that most people probably wouldn't have said anything about. But for me, it brought back so many issues that I had growing up when because I was born in Kent, right? My family, like my dad's family from South London. We lived with my nan in Croydon, but my mum didn't want to be in Croydon. She had one bad instance.
Right.
She didn't want to be away from her family. Obviously, before that, she only knew Kent. So to be in Croydon and suddenly, like, surrounded by non-white people, which for her wasn't a problem. However, to be spoken to a certain way because she had, you know.
Right. So your mum's white?
Yeah.
And you're
Jamaican.
Okay.
West African Jamaican.
Right.
So, like, she obviously thought that was going to be her life every day if she was there, perhaps. So she was like,
right.
No,
Interesting.
I need to live in Kent. Okay, whatever. So we there, like, I went to school down there, and one of the things that I heard endless times, and I'm sure you've heard people say endless times, oh, but you don't, or, oh, you talk white, and oh, you know. So that was always something that was in my head, is the way people view accents and language. And one time I was with an ex of mine, and we were at like her workplace, and she is like Londoner, Essex-ish. And she was like, oh, what, you want some peanut butter? And this other girl who was like Swedish, but well-to-do family over here to go school and do this and that, was like, peanut butter, and started mocking how she said it, because she spoke better English than the English people, right? And I just went, yeah, peanut butter. And I was like, and she was like, it's not that deep. And I was like, but it is, because there's a reason why people who speak a certain way are viewed a certain way. There's a reason why the Queen's English even exists, because it's not actually the way English was even originally spoken.
Right.
You know, apparently, I can't remember where I was reading. I was reading some stuff on language history and history on the English language.
Yeah.
And I read something about how the US in general, but there was a specific, is the closest to what the original English speakers would have sounded like.
Interesting.
And when I thought about it, it's like, it kind of makes sense, because around the rest of the UK, nobody really speaks like anything close to the Queen's English. If anything, there are similarities to foreign speaking English places, you know? And I was like, you know, the whole bath thing, more places actually say bath and bath than say bath. So I was like, oh, you know, and
Elaine, I love like language stuff. Yeah.
But it's you know, it's so complex. But I was like, it is that deep, because simple things like that, you know, are the difference between them giving that person the job and that person the job, because they go, Same with Akala. I love Akala, but I love that he is popular and he's amazing and everything about him is amazing. However, I hate how people love him for the reason that he speaks so well.
Right.
And I'm like, you mean he's just adopted more of a upper class, or not upper class even, just a more articulated Queen's English, so as to get his point across, because you guys wouldn't listen to him if he was speaking how he came up speaking.
Or even if he hasn't done that intentionally, that there may be another 100 people who are just as educated, because he doesn't use as much slang or have an accent. He's the one that's been accepted and elevated.
I see it on comments on his videos all the time, you know, with people who are like, oh, he's so well spoken, gets his point across so well. And it's like, okay, he does, but why does he have to speak a certain way for you to accept that what he's saying about black people and racism within this country? You know?
Right, like someone less articulate or who uses more slang or whatever could make the same.
Yeah. And obviously from the demographic he comes from, a lot of people are not speaking like that.
Yeah.
You know, the parts of the country that he's from and his demographic are from and tend to live in do not speak like that. However, will not be respected because of how they speak, you know? And like you said, in the films, the black guy's always that. I saw a meme that said, I say a meme, I mean, it said, they used to respect us, what happened now?
Right.
And it had Martin Luther King and his closest ones walking, arms locked. And then it had some black guys, baggy pants, you know, sagging their jeans and whatever. And it was like,
who is the one? Who are they talking about? Like who
didn't specify.
Respected who?
It just said, this is when they used to respect us and this is now.
Oh, right. As in that's the reason why there's issues.
As if
also Martin Luther King was shot, but anyway. He wasn't that respected.
They respected, but they killed him. Right. It was like, cause he's in a suit and they're sagging their pants. Okay. And it's like all these things that are, you know, people throw in, and you see it on TV, you see the way somebody speaks and they always portray someone a certain way. And it's like, the way they dress comes with this, the way they speak comes with this. And people go, oh, it's not that deep. It's not that deep. And I'm like, it is though. It is more deeper than it isn't. And usually it's way more deeper than you want to admit. And that's why you just say, oh, it ain't that deep.
Yeah.
Because if you want to pick out everything, then actually you'd start feeling uncomfortable in a lot of things you watch, you know?
I think also it's like, for me, where I draw make the distinction is like, okay, you know, with the peanut butter story that you're saying, like, I wouldn't have a problem with that and like making jokes and making fun of each other if you understand what you're saying. It's like, I'm super cool with like, okay, offensive jokes or whatever, but it's like, if you understand why this is
what you're saying,
not just you're saying peanut butter wrong. It's like, I'm making fun of you knowing, like, and the funny thing almost is that I'm doing it in a way that I know is wrong. You know what I mean? It's like, if you're leaning into that to make a joke, that's one thing. And with the knowledge that yeah, you don't actually have to speak differently. You know, I don't actually speak any better than you. But when you can tell when someone's making a joke because they actually think that they speak better than you, and it's like
when she said that, I was like, she's coming from a well-to-do family, goes to a good school, she speaks very good English when she's foreign speaking, you know, and it was like a ha ha ha. No, I think she even followed up by saying something along the lines of, English isn't even my first language.
Right.
And it was like it's your language, like you can't speak it properly, sort of thing.
It's like, well, then you also don't know the ins and outs of the language and how it's developed and what each accent and slang signifies. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah. It was one of those where I was just like, it's so unnecessary. Like,
it's like me making fun of I mean, my girlfriend speaks French and I'm like learning French, but like, it's like me making fun of someone who speaks French and they say something wrong and I'm like, oh, you don't even speak French properly. And they're like, oh, well, my accent is like, comes from like Cameroon and it's mixed with different language, you know, or like an Arabic Algerian person who's like, well, this is actually mixed with Arabic and that's why it sounds wrong, but you don't understand the cultural significance of my slang or my way of speaking the language. So it's like, shut the fuck up, woman who is from Sweden. Is the moral
it was just
of the
annoying
story.
as well. It was just annoying as well. It's like, like people, like I had this conversation in the car with my uncle and auntie as well, like, because my uncle's a bit like that, you know, and his thing was, you know, you speak how they speak, I'm saying in inverted commas, they, and we speak how we speak, but we don't give them what's ours, sort of thing,
right?
You know, that was like our grandparents' sort of way of, not I say our grandparents, but that was sort of the older generation's vibe, was that to survive you need to speak how the white people around you speak, and then you speak your own with your own. Whereas our generation has just, everyone speaks now how they speak, you know. It's been brought in and now it's basically everyone speaks patois and slang but just English speaking, you know. But so he would very much always correct and be like, it's the, or it's this, or it's that, and my thing was always like, what is the purpose of language? To communicate. Did you understand?
You
what
fucking
I was
got
saying?
what I meant.
If you, like, the same when people correct foreign speaking people, and sometimes foreign people are like, no, please correct me because I want to speak it as best as I can. Okay, if you want correction,
that's like an understanding when they've expressed it.
You ask me and I will say, okay, but people who have to correct or they laugh, I'm like, if you understood what they were saying, then language, it served its purpose. Literally, they didn't actually say anything wrong. You know, the rules of grammar change, words change, what they mean vary and somewhat change, you know. So ultimately, what's right in language now might be wrong in 100 years. As long as you understood what they were saying, you don't need to say anything. You know,
I really, it's one of those things that gets on my nerves is people that correct like a water, or like they tell you like, and I'm like, oh, I'm 30, like go fuck yourself. Like,
it's like who cares?
Like at this point, I'm saying it on purpose. Like don't like, that pisses me off. And it's like, what are you doing besides making yourself feel better than me? Do you know what I mean? And that's without the connotations that come from it being a racial thing. Do you know what I mean? Like if they were to say that to someone who came from, you know, a black background or things like that. But actually, you know what I did want to ask you about is cultural appropriation and stuff like that, because we spoke a bit about that. Because the one thing we were laughing at was, or talking about, let's say, was like white guys wearing do-rags.
Yes.
What's your? So let's talk cultural appropriation. How do you define it? Cultural appropriation. This is something I've had long conversations about.
Somebody wrote a great article on it, and there was like a brief summary. That I used to have memorized, but essentially it was along the lines of taking something that, or enjoying or sharing something that belongs to somebody else without the proper understanding of why and how and where, and the added baggage of, are they able to enjoy, are they able to survive, are they able to even exist in their own capacity, as they are, without any problem, without any oppression, you know. And obviously when you talk about black things, then you could argue almost everything black becomes cultural appropriation, because for the most part in the West, black people can't exist just as they are.
Well, I mean, would you say that what would you say that white people could do of another race, or which race can they take things from that they haven't fucked?
I guess that's the hard part, isn't it? But it's funny because, like, I mean, like, we had the conversation about braids, you know, and black girl braids. Yeah. And, like, obviously, for example, there was that whole issue with Mad Max.
I didn't hear about it. Can you run me through it?
So basically, she posted a picture of her with box braids. Yeah. A couple of, I think an African-American woman. I can't remember exactly.
Like in the scene or someone?
Yeah, a couple of dancers basically said to her, like, this makes you feel uncomfortable, blah, blah, like, you know.
Where's she from also?
Belgium.
Okay, right, yeah.
And then there was arguments. One thing I will say, on the comments, there was people, non-black people, arguing against the black people in support of Mad Max, which for me is just a no-go in general. Like, if a black person says to a white person, that makes me feel uncomfortable, whether or not that's right or wrong. If white people jump in, they're doing nothing wrong, like, if you're not black, then don't be telling them that they can't feel, you know. Okay. You know, and the thing was, there was other girls saying this as well, and it's like, okay, but you know, if you said to a b-boy that you felt uncomfortable, and another b-boy came along and said, no, he did nothing wrong, shut up, you'd have a problem. That's
a good example.
So there was some of those comments where I was like, you know, and there was other black people as well arguing against some of the black people. And I had a conversation privately with Mad Max, and we had a great conversation, you know. She said, look, one of her best friends does them for her. It's her business. She supports her business. She thinks they're beautiful. You know, she's very aware of the culture and everything that's going on, the history. She's supportive in this and that. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. That's great. You know, obviously practically, you know, when some people say, oh, it's not for you, they simply mean it's not meant for your hair and it will mess up your hair. You know, like if you've got thin, straight European hair, I say European because you can have straight, thick hair, like Indian hair is very thick.
Yeah, right.
You know, braids and locks have been prominent in Indian culture for thousands of years as well. Like, obviously, it's not a specifically black thing. But if you've got thin European hair, then cane rows, box braids, these things are gonna mess up your hairline. They're gonna pull out your hair.
Right.
Your hair's not gonna be able to handle it, you know, for long periods of time. So, you know, that's on you then. And obviously she gave these reasons why she supported her friends and this and that. And I was like, you know what, cool. And maybe that's okay. And that's what you want to do. And your friends are okay with that. And that's fine. There is still going to be people who are uncomfortable with it, regardless of what you say. And that's just the way it is, you know? Like, in an ideal world, we could all share everything and it would be fine, you know? Adele, for example, Carnival, everyone does a madness for Carnival. I can look at her and be like, I think she looks stupid. And I don't speak for all black people. And I'm sure many black people were like, that's wrong. And some were like, I don't care. Either way, it was Carnival. People have been doing it.
Yeah.
If she was rolling around like that every day, it would be a different story.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what are you doing? It's Carnival. She looked silly. She did her thing. Who cares? You know, like, so yeah. And, well, you wanted to talk about white guys with do-rags, isn't it?
Well, I mean, it's all related, because I think also it's the idea of what you said. What was your definition of appropriation? Like using something that they...
Well, yeah, the first thing is using without the understanding of where it comes from and why it's used and whatnot. And then the deeper context currently is what are those people experiencing? Are you helping those people? Are you supporting those people? Are you just taking what they can't even enjoy themselves right now? You know, I said to Mad Max, like, the example of as kids, you know, when I, for example, had been given something, had some sweets, or, you know, it'd be like, they can't eat this. So if these kids can't eat this, then none of the group is going to have it, just because we don't want to rub it in their faces that they can't enjoy it and we can. And it's a bit like yeah, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing it maybe, but at the same time, if you know that somebody who is meant to be doing that, who it belongs to, cannot enjoy it and wear it without issue.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I can.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a bit like, I understand why some people don't like it, because it is a bit of a sucker punch. You're like, oh, safe, you know?
Yeah. And especially when it's like deemed unprofessional at work and these type of things.
Yeah.
Where I think it's hard, because I think some people get the first hurdle and then fall at the second, where they're like, okay, well, I understand, I care, I'm, you know, even maybe what she said, like she's supporting what I'm assuming the friend was black.
Yeah.
So she's supporting a black business by doing it.
Yeah.
I get, like, you know, part of the breaking culture, probably understands a lot of, you know, history and that type of stuff surrounding these struggles, I would assume. So that's the first hurdle cleared. It's like, okay, cool. You're not just some person being like, these are cute.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Which is what some people thought she was just...
Right, just
she
doing
didn't know she was an airhead. But
then you've still got the second hurdle, which is, but the fact still remains, no matter how clued up you are, you're still able to do that and someone else can't. So in a way, yes, I would, this is my take on it, but like, yes, you're fine in you've ticked the first box, which is like, you've done your homework, let's say. You're not just being ignorant and just stealing something with no context.
Yeah.
However, you still have to accept it's going to hurt when, you know, imagine you're a black woman that got sent home from work and asked to get like her hair changed, and then you see this posted the next day. Like even if you didn't do anything wrong, you can still, I guess, hurt people's feelings in a way, or like make them feel bad, or rub things in their faces that they're experiencing every day.
Yeah, that's literally like, and she said that, she was like, yeah, I get that, the whole rubbing it in their face, like it's just that understanding then that like, so many people are like, is it wrong, is it right, it's like, it's not even about is it right or wrong, it's just sensitivity.
Everyone wants like a rule, like, can I do this? Can I do this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, I feel like the only place you can have a blanket rule is saying the N-word. That's an always no. But everything else, it's like, let's talk context, like, you know?
Yeah, there's things which are, like, I had another conversation with somebody else ages ago, because she posted a picture, she did a photo shoot in a war bonnet.
I don't think I even know what that is.
Shall I Google it? Indigenous American...
Oh, right. Yeah, go on.
And I didn't know worn specifically by men in a certain time.
Right. Native American stuff.
Pre-war ceremony, something.
Yeah, I didn't
but it was like, that isn't just a fashion accessory.
Yeah.
You know?
This is like the Coachella demographic.
Yeah.
They'll wear that as, and the Indian bindis,
Yeah, with the bindi. Oh. Yeah. And it's like certain things have sacred... and this is where the Western, where it really, what I was going to say earlier is that, and when you said, look, what is it that, you know, what can white people take that, you know, they haven't already, and it's like this is where you mainly see this in white culture and not anywhere else, because.
Although I have heard stuff, maybe it's more related to the dancing, I have heard stuff about Asian dancers kind of wearing like, gang outfits and stuff from like LA and Crips and Blood stuff, and it's like as a fashion thing, and it's like, what? The
Korean breakers especially, they get their hair, they do Afro perms, they do locks, they wear do-rags, they dress like gangsters, like, while simultaneously still being kind of racist a lot of time.
I was going to say, is it fairly safe to say, apologies for my Asian people out there, is it fairly safe to say those countries are still pretty racist against black people? From the people I know, because I've heard China's mad.
From the people I know who've been there, at best it's ignorant, inquisitive racism, right? And at worst it's straight up racism. Right. Like there's still a lot of lack of understanding and a lot of lack of respect / just general poor behavior. Like there's like the people I know who've been traveling and been in those places, because I've not been to anywhere in Asia yet, but for the people I know, yeah, they said it's baffling. Like, they have hair shops where they'll literally go to get their hair made into afro hair.
That's mad.
But their families are still, they will go home and still talk shit about black people. They'll still be like, no, we don't like black people.
That's
still,
like straight up like appropriation.
yeah. And it's like
straight out the textbook.
Yeah. If that's the extreme of, that is 100% wrong there. Like, there is something wrong there. But like with what I was saying with, in terms of like white society in general, like I feel like with those cultures, they do understand though when there is a difference between something being casual and something being sacred. Whereas white societies tend not to respect, maybe not white, maybe Western in general, tend not to respect when things are sacred anymore. So for example, the whole war bonnet thing, and that was like, oh, it's not a big deal. I even said to some people, like, oh, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, for you it's not, but for the people who that belongs to.
Was this an English person?
Eastern European.
Okay, well, yeah. That's pretty far removed as well. Like, they probably don't even see them as a real people. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't have...
It's seen as like a, and you know, like a, what their heads are up in the clouds, what they believe doesn't exist. And it's like, hold on a sec, just because you don't believe the same things or your people don't, like...
Meanwhile, they're going to church.
Sorry. What those...
Too controversial for the pod.
That's a whole other conversation we can have. But like, there are certain things which, doesn't matter what I think of it, that belongs to those people. You know, it's like nearly every single person will agree that you do not go and fucking piss on someone's gravestone. Right.
No matter whether you're
no matter what you believe
in the afterlife,
you will not do that because you think that is disrespectful. So why is it so hard to understand there are certain things you don't put on, that you don't wear, that you go, that is sacred to those people. So I don't need to wear that. You know, why do you want to wear it that bad? And obviously that a do-rag isn't sacred per se, you know. But
that then talks about the context of like what we were saying in the second hurdle, which is like, okay, maybe you don't have the sacred necessary element, but in a culture where you're consistently being persecuted for things that are inherent to your race, kind of anything racially signifying becomes sacred in a way.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
I mean, for me, like a do-rag was like something that I was like, okay, that means something to me. I don't know what it means, but it means something to me. I use it for a certain reason and it means something. I know if I wear it, you know, that I am saying something about myself, you know. And I stopped wearing a do-rag or certain things outside the house because of the response I got, you know, for a long time. It was only in the last couple of years, even when I started realizing people started to wear do-rags more in breaking. And I was like, why are you wearing a do-rag to breaking? They're like, oh, because it protects my hair. And I'm like, I've been wearing that since I was little, but why the fuck am I going to wear it to breaking? Like, I didn't see it as a dance thing. And then I started realizing, oh, you know what, actually it is practical. Right. It is actually really practical, you know? So, you know, and when I realized my hair was starting to get damaged from breaking, I was like, actually, I should probably wear my do-rag, not when I sleep, but when I'm breaking as well. Okay, cool, you know what? So I understand some people wear it for the practical side, you know? I mean, it's not the only thing they could wear.
There's a multitude of
tons
things
of things
that
they could wear.
Isn't related to a race, which is being fucked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, guys, bigger context here. Yeah, your hair needs damage, but it's like, going back to the respect thing, it's like, look around, listen to the news. Like, there's a lot of shit going on because of people's racial identity. Just fucking buy a beanie hat. Do you know what I mean?
You could wear. And the thing is, like, with breakers, I'm like, all right, cool. It's whatever, really. Like, if they're going to wear it, they're going to wear it. But then I've seen choreo dancers at studio. Like, one guy, baggy flannel shirt, do-rag. I think he had on AF1s, like, typical, like, yeah, I'm gangster. And I was just looking at him like, why? Like, you're not maybe doing anything wrong, but why is that on your head? Like, the whole look alone is, I want to be a fucking gangbanger gangster something. But the fact that you connect the do-rag with that look as a thing,
which is then tying the look to black people.
Yeah. And it's like, and you just like, yeah, you think you look cool. You don't look cool. Like, it's the same with the braids and even with locks, you know, because anyone's hair can lock and can mat, you know, but there is a very different way that hair locks when it's afro,
right?
You know, or when it's thick, you know, and European hair has to be very, very dry and unwashed and dirty, and you have to rub it and they burn it even sometimes, right. And they do all sorts like to get the hair to end up locking, dread locking, you know. And I've had people say to me, "Oh, is it appropriation?" I'm like, well, you can do that. However, it's a different thing. And just so you know, I think it's a bit dumb. I don't think it looks good.
Yeah.
And it's also a bit gross, you know. Whereas
it's a lot of effort to go through for something that your hair's not supposed to do.
Yeah. If you got tight afro hair, all you have to do is like leave it in a plait, and the plait's already locked, and you're like, what the hell's going on? It's been like 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
Like the hair wants to do that. If you don't comb it, it starts doing that. You know, within days it might start doing that. Like it naturally happens so quickly. And it can be clean and you can lock it. So it's like, it's a whole different thing. And like with do-rags, like when people are wearing this shit, I'm just like, okay, you can, but I will tell you, you look stupid. Like a white guy coming to a choreo dance class in a do-rag because he thinks he looks cool. I was like, you can do that, but you look stupid. And there's just going to be black people looking at you going, why? Just why?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely this is definitely the thing where it's like, I would say it relates to what you were saying about the Native American stuff and you know, sacred things where it's like, you know, I guess with maybe Asian or like Oriental Asian or Indian, like my mum's family's Indian, and it's like they're very accepting of white people wearing saris. They love it, actually. Like if you go to a wedding, it's like everybody wear a sari, and it's never seen as like, why is that? It's like, oh, why are you not wearing a sari?
But it's like, you're coming to our wedding.
Yeah,
cool. You come
join in,
like
celebrate the culture with us, kind of thing.
It's invited.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, a big part of it, in a way that it's not sacred for only Indian women to wear in certain contexts. I think this is kind of the thing. Like at this moment, a lot of things that are a signifier of being black are kind of sacred at the moment. I feel like it's kind of like an honorary sacred stuff, like do-rags, any of these hairstyles that are like black women natural hair. It's kind of sacred at the moment because of being sensitive to what's happening. It's like we kind of have to see it that way. It's like maybe in 1,000 years, we're like, yeah, wear the do-rags, wear the braids, we're all equal, fantastic. But it's like right now, let's just think about the last 100 years, 400 years even, and like, should we, you know, maybe just, you know, like, it's like you just got punched in the face and you've got a black eye still. And then I'm just like painting circles and I'm like, oh yeah, we're twins. And you're like, no, I just got hit in the face. Like, what do you mean we're twins? Like, it's not a cute makeup thing.
Yeah.
I can't take this off. It hurts, you know? So it's kind of like, I mean, it's not the same thing in that way, but it's like when you're getting something, the sweet idea.
It is kind of that same thing. Because it's like, it is almost exactly that. Because if you paint that on, you can take that off.
Yeah.
You know?
I actually meant in the other way that like, your natural hair isn't something that someone's punched you in the face.
No, I know.
But
in that sense of context. one thing is there and one thing is something that somebody puts on and can take off. Yes. So I can put on a do-rag and take off the do-rag, but it doesn't change my hair that's underneath. It doesn't change that people see me and go,
it's a costume.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's putting on a costume. Oh, I'm dressing up as a black guy today.
Yeah.
Like you're not,
that's literally what the Koreans do though.
Yeah.
Like that is literally what the Korean breakers do. Like they literally dress up what they think they're dressing up as a black guy. That is literally.
Do you think
what
they do it with that intention? They know they're dressing up, like, or they just see someone wearing this and they don't understand that that's related to the racial identity.
Oh, they know it's a black thing. They definitely they 100%. It's like I don't know if they grew up watching Boys in the Hood or I don't know. what it is, but they literally, they must have watched music videos and things, and they're like, yes, we're gonna dress up like these people.
Yeah.
And that's literally what they do from top to bottom.
I'm with you on everything we've said so far, basically.
And I was on one sec specifically.
Go on, sorry.
And I was gonna say specifically, it's the ones that are following the traditional b-boy, right. Bronx, New York.
Yeah.
It's like they're literally trying to be exactly that.
And I've said this in like about 5 podcasts now, but about like how being authentic to who you are is like one of the best things you can do for hip hop, is like not pretending to be someone from the Bronx in the 80s, because you're not. You're like a guy from, you know, South London who, you know, whatever, like you're not that. So be who you are, and you're probably going to be safe. Like just be who you really are. And I mean, there's a difference between being influenced by stuff and cultural appropriation, I guess.
Yeah. I
think my question mark comes in like that. I mean, it's funny because Rory asked me this, I think, and I was like, yeah, I actually don't know, but like, let's say should in air quotes, any white European people be participating in any hip hop culture at all? In that, if we're talking about cultural appropriation, because it's like, well, we're getting paid off something that people are not able to get paid off in the same way. Do you know what I mean? If we like, how far does that go? I'm not saying that's my opinion, but it's like, how far does that?
Well, I had this conversation with like my mentor, and you know Foggy?
I don't think so.
James from Trinity Warriors.
I know Trinity Warriors, but I don't think I know the scene that well.
So he worked in Cambridge as well, like after me, like, and we had this conversation with our mentor, and like I said, and he said the exact same thing. Like, I was like, yeah, like this isn't my culture. You know, like for me, it's not my culture either.
Interesting.
You know, like I have somewhat always had a connection to it and had representation within it. But even then, it's not my culture, you know?
So you would see yourself as a guest in hip hop culture?
Like 100%. And we had that conversation mainly because of seeing the way certain people would police hip hop. And it was like a lot of the people who were up till recently policing hip hop always, this ain't hip hop, that ain't hip hop, this is real, that ain't real. It's like, you're not American, you're not African American, you're not even black.
Yeah.
You know? And yet it's like, no, this is real hip hop, this is real, that's real. Like, this isn't our culture.
You know what's interesting, like on that point, like I've been thinking about this literally like this week, is like, you know, all the people that are like purists, hip hop purists, and they get pissed at like mumble rap and stuff like that, and they're like, oh, this isn't real, this is blah blah. And it's like, so you're a white guy from England, let's say this hypothetical person, telling a black American from New York what to do with their culture, and that they're not part of their culture.
What they've actually, where their culture has actually evolved.
Yeah, to, and where it should or shouldn't
whether you
go.
Like it or not.
Yeah,
that's a natural evolution.
Like, oh, this isn't real hip hop.
And like, you're saying that's not real hip hop.
You're not like there to know where, like, you know, it's not your. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, sorry.
No, that's legit, and that's what I found, because when I was there and working in Cambridge and stuff, and it was like, we got to spend a lot of time with Poe, different people, Kenny, you know, and it was nice to spend time and learn and really experience, you know, grow within hip hop and learn. But after a while, I started to be like, it's all very forced. It's all very try hard, you know, trying so hard to maintain something that is an idea of what you think it was, you know? And going back to what you said, like what Rory said, like, for me, I'm like, well, we're all partaking in something that is a reimagination of what we think hip hop is meant to be, you know? And yeah, we might make money off that, we might not. But ultimately, what we're doing is just something that we've rebranded, you know, whether that's right or wrong, you know. But as soon as it left, you know, as soon as it left the Bronx, as soon as it left, you know, 30, however many years ago, when it first sort of traveled the world and was shown to everyone, 37, 38 years ago. You know, as soon as that happened, you're gonna have like recreations and attempts to copy and see what it is. And
like even in the States, that the difference between, I'm specifically talking like music, but like the hip hop culture around New York hip hop as opposed to LA hip hop, as opposed
East
to
and West
South
Coast
like
and South Side.
it's very different culturally.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't claim, I definitely have benefited and I do make money off of hip hop. And somebody might say I haven't, but I feel like I give more back than I've taken, you know, in the way I've shared and taught and done a lot of things that I don't get paid for. And the way I've tried to support the culture or those in those communities, you know, my thing is more about supporting the people in the communities than the you know, oh, I want to support hip hop by setting up a dance class and teaching kids, you know, and like keeping the culture going. I'm like, that's great, but what about the actual people who live there? And, you know, how can I support those people? So every time, like, you know, Ben's from Philly, for example, Box One, and he's setting things up, doing things. Okay, so he's coming over and he's bringing an actual African-American approach. Philly, his teachers are OGs in Philly. Like, he's, you know, not New York, but as good as it gets, you know. He's current, he's doing his thing, he's coming over. Okay, cool. So this is an opportunity for him to share an actual hip-hop or as close to hip-hop experience, you know, to people here. So cool. Instead of me teaching, I'm gonna set up class with him to teach, and whatever he asks for money wise, we can do it. And if people don't turn up, I paid the rest of it out of my own pocket anyway. It's fine. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so he's making these t-shirts. Cool. So he wants to see if he can get enough people. He'll send a batch. He supports their event that they've got going on there, make history, you know. Like, I feel like supporting them in pushing the culture does more than us trying to keep the culture going and how we think we should keep the culture going. Do you see what I mean?
100%. You know? And I think a lot of times people use that culture thing as an excuse when actually they just mean support me. Like, they're like, oh, I'm supporting the culture by putting on another event. And it's like, yeah, but you're getting paid. Yeah. All the money's got, you know, or whatever it is. It's like, you're just extending and expanding, like you said, our reimagining of the culture. You're not supporting you're not supporting where it came from or the original. And like there'll be, I know it's changing a little bit and it's changed recently with people being more outspoken, but I remember thinking so many times, like, why is there no black judges on the panel? Or specifically African American judges, you know, why? And it doesn't have to be every time. Or why is there not really many black b-boys doing well? Or why is there not many, you know? And it was always like, besides it's nice to have role models, it was also like, why is it that the people who made this, who it actually came from, are not given due credit in this? You know, why are they not shown as or given the respect? Or why is it that the way they perhaps dance or what they bring is not seen as good as what, say, the Europeans are doing now? You know, like a lot of, this is going off a bit now, but like a lot of what is popularized in breaking is centered around Eurocentrism. Like what's the popular styles of breaking tend to be what's popular in Europe, right? You know, across the world, you mean? Yeah, right. Like obviously there's always fads with, say, oh, Korean power hype took it to the next level, that was popular. But sort of the all-round breaking styles, it tends to be based around what is popular in Europe, you know? Interesting. And some people might go, oh, that's bullshit, but I'm not saying that for no reason. I'm saying that over several years of consistently looking at the different styles and where they come from and going, it always seems to be a trend of what's popular in Europe right now. And that's what's seen as
that's what's seen as like the level to aspire to, you know. And it's weird because like there's so many different styles of breaking around the world, and there's now more and more b-boys coming out with more of their own. I mean, I guess people have always been coming out with their own traditional styles, but there's especially a lot more black b-boys feeling confident and coming out now and being like, this is how we dance, you know. And with Ben, for example, and some of his crewmates, and they are pushing while still receiving negativity, hate, and even racism from within the scene. I don't know if you saw, like, there was an IB battle.
Okay.
Rebel, BC1 All-Stars versus like a All-Star squad put together. Somebody dropped out, so they said to Ben, because he was there, like, do you want to jump in? Cool. They were going one at a time.
When was this? How long ago?
2018. Maybe?
Okay, right. So it wasn't like just now.
I think it was 2018.
Right.
And they obviously went one at a time, and then when they went again, they sort of maintained the same order. And because he went before the person he was supposed to go afterwards, the comments on YouTube, I'm not just like, I didn't even notice.
As in, like, that was the order from the first time, and then the second time around, he didn't maintain the same order.
Yeah, it was like he was meant to go sixth, but he went fifth.
That's not how it fucking works in a career battle anyway, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, exactly. It was like nobody even cares anyway. Yeah. And then it was like all these comments about how, he's shit. Like, people using the M word, being like, oh, he went before so-and-so. Like, who the fuck does he think he is? Oh, who the fuck is he anyway? Like, and so many racist comments where it was like, wow, this is within the scene still, that people just don't still respect black people or black breakers. There's almost like the same way that there's a natural inclination to question a black woman, or a natural inclination to what's the word? To not believe, or to criminalize a black man, maybe to think that he's doing something wrong, you know, when he isn't. Yeah. Like, all those things, they exist within the scene as well, you know? Yeah. And it's something that over years and years I saw, when it was like, why is it that there is not, why is it that they never hang around? Why is it that I don't see this? Why is it that? And more and more, and when I saw that video in the comments, and I was like, wow. And even to have other people say like, yeah, but he shouldn't have been there anyway. Like, regardless of that, he shouldn't have been there. Like, he's just not on their level. He's not this, he's not that. And it's like, what is it you're actually watching then? Because so many people were stuck on what they think breaking should look like. And they're stuck on, like I said, this Eurocentric idea of what breaking should look like. And some of these black people, they're dancing like with the styles that are popular. They're dancing with their own fresh styles. They're dancing in a way that is relatable and specific to them being black. And people are like, nah. Yeah. And it's like, but this is hip hop. So if anything, it should be the other way around. And you'd think that actually that would be like, oh, this is actually the shit we should be aiming for, you know? Yeah,
it's like almost like the racism flies under the radar because they think they're almost safe in like, oh, but I know this is the culture I know, and I know how this should and shouldn't be. And it's like, not only is it an evolving culture, it's not your culture to evolve. Yeah. Like, in a way, it's like, if he wants, I don't really know breaking too well to know his style or how it differs, but if someone wants to come in from an authentic background and change things and inject things into the culture, who are you as a guest to say that they're doing it wrong? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, you think you're safe, like, oh yeah, but I know how breaking should be. And it's like, well, you don't, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's like what you said earlier, like it's an idea of what you think it was like back then, even though you weren't there.
Yeah.
Because you saw a documentary once.
Yeah, no, literally an idea. Like, that's the other thing. Like, it sounds dickish to say this, but I don't care. I'll say it now. I've got to the point where if you're not black, I do not care to some extent. I do not care. If you're not black and you want to talk shit about people in a black culture or a black dance, I'm not here for it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're not black and you want to say like, well, actually, I think this is better, I think that is better, actually, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like we can have conversations about the levels of people, you know, and we think this person is good as that person is good. But when you're going to sit there and shit on black dancers, or you're going to claim to have a certain understanding of a dance, especially as like, I'm not being funny, but a lot of the European cats don't actually, in breaking I'm talking, you know, a lot of the European cats in breaking really don't dance very well.
Right.
And I don't have a problem with it, because if culturally they're not inclined to dance a certain way, don't do it.
Yeah.
Do what you do, you know? Obviously, like I said, that's then the way they dance tends to be seen as something better, which for me is very strange.
Yeah.
But don't then especially go and be commenting on what the dance should be like, or how this person is not then good, or this person is better. And like,
I think it also goes back to the peanut butter example, where it's like, if you understand the culture that well, you'll understand which parts are like maybe technique based, or we can discuss level in terms of this or that, or what clean dancing is as opposed to messy dancing, or whatever those technical aspects may be. But then if you understand the culture well enough, you'll understand which parts are cultural and which parts you can't say that's wrong, because it's like they're bringing something in from the culture. And that's maybe like what we said about the ignorant Swedish woman just saying you shouldn't say peanut butter. It's like in the same way, oh, you shouldn't dance like that. Why?
Yeah.
Because your understanding of breaking is centered from this, or dance is centered from this perspective, and you're not understanding that there's things outside of your perspective that look weird to you because you didn't grow up with them and you don't understand the context.
I think you've explained what I wanted to explain to someone when I was having this conversation a couple of times recently.
Sick.
Because there's been a couple of people who I've showed certain dances to, and they don't get it. They just don't get it.
Which in a
like,
way is fine to not get it, but it's what you then do with that.
But then it's like you spent your whole life benefiting off of a black culture to not have enough understanding to really gauge what it is they're doing. Something that can't be explained necessarily. It's like you know, there's certain dance styles that you watch and you go, you know, say if it's a Korean breaker or someone and they're doing moves and you're like, yeah, that's that Korean shit. Like physically, like most people aren't able to pull that shit off, you know, like fair enough, you know, because that's the way they're built and that's what they train, that's what they can do, you know. And there's some dance they do some and you're like, well, it's just so black. And there's nothing about what he did that you can't say, that you can't analyze, you know, it was this move and it was this move, but there's the way they do this and something about the way they do everything and what it is they're doing that some people are like, oh, it's okay. And you're like, but can you not just see like that he's bringing him to the table and his blackness to the table in his dance, you know? And in hip hop, so many people, I'm like, they don't get that someone can bring their blackness. And maybe this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in being who you are when you dance, you know, because so many in hip hop are trying to emulate something that they're not.
Yep.
And with the way black breakers and a lot of black breakers at the moment are bringing their blackness to their dance, and a lot of people are not getting it. And it's like, but that's what everyone should be doing, you know? Like,
interesting.
Obviously not everyone bringing their blackness. But like everyone
bringing who they are.
Max asked me, she was like, but you know, who am I? Like, I'm from Belgium. Belgium. You know, we have cheese and like she you know, she was like, what, you know, it's boring, it's this.
I've had this same conversation, that it's like almost that if they don't emulate someone else, who are they supposed to be? And it's like, well, that's the bigger question, who are you?
Like who you are isn't defined by, you know, what tourists come to your country for. You know,
Like,
And-
we're not breaking with fucking cups of tea and rain.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean?
Like,
Like
Menno, for example, prime example from the Netherlands. Dutch people are pretty boring, in all fairness. They are though. British people are boring as well.
Yeah,
But Dutch
true.
people are pretty boring. Menno, quiet, white Dutch guy. Nothing immediately interesting about him. His dance has become super interesting. And even the ways in which he dances that you could say are boring and repetitive, he's utilized to make them interesting and make him one of the best in the world and stand out, you know? Like,
yeah, it's a bit deeper than, oh, I'm like, okay, so my background is like my dad's American and my mum's Indian, right? I was born in London, but I lived a lot of my childhood in New York. But it's like saying, okay, so what am I gonna bring to my dance? Like, my dad's American and my mum's Indian. Like, okay, I'm gonna use fucking Bollywood dances and I'm gonna infuse that with my hip hop. It's like, no, that's the very surface level shit. It's more like, who are you as a person and your influences and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like what I like, you know, it's what you like. I mean, I could talk about myself loads, but like the way that I dance, I think I've spent quite a while even though I'm not great or like in a top level, I've spent a long time curating who I am. And that's one of the things that I'm the most proud of. I feel like I always fucking post about this on my Insta, but anytime I watch a round that I'm happy with, I'm like, yo, I'd get my ass kicked by a lot of the kids in the scene at the moment. There's like fucking all these like Ice, Evie and all these guys that started years after me. They would smoke me, but I'm not saying that this isn't like, not talking about them anymore for a second, but like for me, the thing that I'm the most proud of is I can look at that and go, yeah, I'd lose a battle, but I've spent so long to develop who I am in my dance and to be able to see it and to be able to like, I know why I dance like that. I know why I now at 30, I understand why I like to be calm and not lose my shit and not be messy. I like intricacy. I like things that like make me look good, you know, like I don't go into positions that look awkward and weird because of I have an affinity for like fashion and presentation and stuff and all these things that make up who I am and my interests. It's why I gravitate towards certain movies. It's why I gravitate towards certain hobbies. Like I've just started skateboarding. I feel like I talk about that a lot, but at least half of the reason why I started is because I love the culture around skateboarding. You know, and it's like I gravitate towards things that have that. I like the fashion, I like the videos, I like the aesthetic of it, as well as the hobby. So understanding all these things about me over the years has allowed me to curate a dance style that is as me as possible. And obviously there's more I can do with it, but I think this is what a lot of people are missing is like what you're saying maybe about Max is like, oh, I'm from Belgium, I don't know how to dance with cheese. And it's like, no, but who are you as a person? And like you said, maybe about Menno being Dutch or whatever, it's like, there's definitely things about me that are influenced by my American side and my Indian side, but also by my British side and growing up in London and even like London hip hop culture and grime has influenced me. And maybe not in a way like I'm going to dance like I would dance to grime or anything like that, but it's understanding how those things have affected
AJ does
you.
that.
So
AJ does that.
How do you mean?
AJ 47.
Yeah.
He dances like he's skanking a rave sometimes.
Right, yeah, exactly. And these things...
But it just looks like him. It's not like he's trying to be it.
Exactly. It's
like,
how understanding who you are and how that can come through naturally. Whatever, let's say, however that could manifest. It's like... Yeah, I think also it's a lot of self-reflection and self-awareness. Like, if you don't really know who you are, external to any thing that you do or any cultures that you're a part of, and, you know, you can be a part of the cultures I'm a part of and the things that I like and the hobbies that I take up, even the friends that I have, are not what make me who I am. The things that make me who I am determine how I end up in those things. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So it's like you're a person first, and then who you are as a person draws you towards certain things.
Yeah.
And it's like if you just define yourself by the things that you're involved in, like, oh, I'm a b-boy, like you're defining yourself off the culture as opposed to defining yourself in who you are and bringing that to the culture.
That was my biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Was that when I was first involved, it was like, yeah, you're a b-boy, you got this and this. Oh, it's hip hop, so you got. And it's only for a long time. Like I had phases where I almost stopped breaking for a long time I wasn't really that interested in battles and stuff, and I was always kind of progressing, but I wasn't really training to progress.
Right.
But also, this is where representation is important, because it was when I first met Box One in 2017 when he came here, and then I started to really follow what he was about, and he started to become more vocal as well. And that was when I realized that I was like, I really didn't have, I wasn't me in breaking, and I didn't really think about it, and I wasn't really even concerned with anything outside of like just trying to be kind of good.
Yeah,
you know.
Right.
And it was only when I met him, and then I started to think more about it, because before that point, again, I didn't really have any role models in breaking. Like, there was people I thought were good, and there was the odd person, but like AJ was my only real role model, physical role model in breaking.
Right.
Because it was like, oh look, who's this tall light skin guy?
Yeah.
Oh, and he does flares. Now I want to learn to flare.
Yeah.
But that was it, you know. He was the only person, and when I started to discover there was more guys, and then with the way conversations evolved and have evolved over the last couple of years, and it's only in those recent times that now I've really started to be comfortable, and my dance is starting to grow more in me as a person culturally, who I am culturally, as opposed to me just, I always danced how I want to dance, did the moves I wanted to do, just did what I wanted to do. But now I'm like, oh, now I feel like I had people to look up to. Now I feel like we're represented more.
Yeah.
And now I feel like all the things that did make me, I can bring to the dance, which before I didn't feel like I could do.
Yeah. You're just like, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with my breaking.
It almost felt like being, even though everyone's trying to be black in hip hop, and maybe that's part of the reason why, it almost felt like it wasn't something that you should bring to the table,
right?
When you're actually,
or like your whatever that looks like to you. It's like, no, you have to do it how it's supposed
it was
to
like,
be done.
no, we got to be real, we got to be hip hop, we got to do this, we got to do that. And it was like, even if culturally this is what I would be bringing to the table, it was like oh, that's not gonna be appreciated, you know. Like I said in the beginning, when I was like, I'm not gonna wear a fucking do-rag to dancing.
But meanwhile, you were wearing them all the time.
Yeah, it was.
And you
like,
knew that they were good for your hair, but like you just didn't feel like they had a place.
Yeah.
In breaking, which is weird.
Yeah. Whereas now, where I'm at now, on the way conversations have been, and having role models and representation, and being like, okay, you know what, cool. And especially when there was a conversation where a few of us were talking about some of the younger cats coming up in the Midlands and up north.
Right.
And a lot of, there's a few groups of kids, especially like taught by the older Trinity guys and stuff. And it seems like the majority of them are black.
Right.
And it was like, oh, this is also a reminder for us to, one, keep going, and two, that they need role models, you know? And there was a moment when I was at a battle, this must be a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And I'd never met a couple of these kids before. And now I'm cool with them. But two of them came and sat behind me when I was doing my rounds. And
like to support you.
They knew, like, I knew Karam and Foggy, but they didn't know me. But they came and sat behind me. And I was like, okay, cool. You know, and it was like they want people who look like them to look up to. And it's almost like okay, well then I need to make sure I am pushing, and now I want to really set an example of someone who they can go, yeah, actually, like, he's dope.
Yeah.
I'd be not just because there's other dope people, there's Karam, there's people who are amazing, but people who look like them, you know, they need people that look like them. And, you know, there's a whole bunch, there's a whole, like, up north, like, now there's a whole bunch of kids coming up, you know, and some of these kids, they're super cool. They got great potential, great talent. And now I'm like, I don't want them to feel like I felt where I was like,
Who am I supposed to look at?
yeah, you know, like hip hop is black culture, you know. I know I'm wearing a fucking t-shirt that says it. Hip hop is black culture, and you can be a breaker, and you can be black, and you can be black in your breaking.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that,
And even more than that, that should be one of the most welcome places
to
bring your blackness into this culture. So
yeah,
that's a fucking
and that even that comment, I think for a lot of people that's hard for them to gauge and hard for them to swallow hearing that.
right.
You know, I mean, a lot of the time when you say anything about black or blackness, people will sort of go, oh, you know,
as if it's going to be exclusively black or whatever. Yeah.
like, and they don't know how to, you know, have that conversation. But it's just saying, like, you know, there is something about identity that is important in regardless of the field that you choose to you know, your hobby, your career, whatever it is. And in a dance that has come from that, and come from what is an idea of, because the African American sort of template is what we've spoken about, the Koreans, like all these people, like everyone around the world wants to be African American, basically, you know.
Yeah.
So like, obviously there's that sort of template, but like everyone has an identity and a connection to their blackness wherever they're from. And the more that people feel confident and comfortable to express that, then the better it is for the scene in general, you know.
Yeah.
And the less, you know, we get these comments on YouTube where, you know, a black b-boy goes before his turn and gets a whole bunch of abuse, you know, like ridiculous shit like that, you know. Just the more that we can encourage the kids to embrace and learn the history and accept, you know, even when this came out and there was the whole conversation, the term guests, you know, and so many people arguing, and it was like, look, everyone, we can all enjoy this. I'm a guest, we can all enjoy this, but let's pay our respect to where it came from. Let's respect the people it came from. Those people who are still in it now, respect them while they're here, respect what they're doing, and respect them as the ultimately the voices of the culture. You know, if there is going to be voices of the culture, it's going to be them.
That is,
I just went off on
no, that's sick. I was going to say that's a solid point to wrap up on, because that was sick.
Buy these t-shirts.
Yeah, I'll be honest, the camera's dead.
Oh shit,
that's right, it happens a lot. But yeah, where do they get these t-shirts from?
So it's Bread to Burn, but if you go to Box One's Instagram, just at Box One, BOXWON, and you'll see the link in his bio, I think, and you can also drop him a message. You'll see he's posted up. He's got a few t-shirts. He's always making and promoting them, but this one specifically is the Hip Hop is Black Culture one, and the proceeds are going towards an event called Make History,
sick,
which I believe is in Oak. Okay, I don't want to get it wrong
somewhere, but we're gonna we can fact check it.
Yeah, this proceeds are going towards funding an event which is around. It's a break-in and hip hop event, and it's centered around black creatives giving. You know, the exhibition battles are between current popular black dancers, and it's just a place to celebrate blackness within hip hop culture in a way that it's been somewhat marginalized.
Sick. And yeah, shout out to Box One. And if you're listening, next time you're in London, come through the podcast.
He would love that.
That'd be sick. I've never met him. I've seen him break though. He's sick. All right, let's wrap it up. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks, Jordan, for coming through.
Thank you.
Super appreciate it. It's always nice when this is like the first long chat I have with someone, you know. It's like, it's a nice way to get into it. Like, we've got an excuse to just get into topics that we might
ramble.
not. Yeah. Episode 19 next week. Thanks for everyone that keeps listening. If you're watching on the YouTube, I do apologize for the camera that dies every other episode. But I'm only one person. I'm doing this whole thing by myself, so I can't get up and change the camera batteries. So for now, until I can get a producer or a different setup, we are going to deal with the camera dying around the 2-hour mark. yeah, like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, all that shit. Jordan's Instagram will definitely be on the screen at the moment, so check him out also. Yeah, I don't think I've got anything else to say, guys. See you next week. Safe, man. Boom.